Welcome back to the Magic Hours. I am Zoe Flowers, and today I am getting to have a conversation with Syhaya Aviel. And I have known Syhaya for so long, and she is an amazing healer. Well, let me just read her bio to you. Okay, let me just read. So, Sahaya is an actress, overall wellness consultant. She specializes in yoga, meditation, oracle readings, and Reiki energy healing. Her clientele largely consists of creatives and artists, but she sees people from all walks of life. And so, Sahaya has a lot of interesting things going on. She's launching a lot of projects. And so she's in a little bit of a transition. And so we did have a reading in 2017. So this will be the first time that is this the first time since 2017?
Yeah, oh my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
I'm so
Okay, so that's a long
excited
time ago.
because that was such a
So
pivotal reading.
it was a good one. I don't remember anything, but you keep
I
you
remember
keep
it
telling me it
all.
was good. You keep telling me it was good. So
Yes.
so let's just get into it, Sahaya. So welcome to the podcast. And I always like to start by asking people who they are in the world. So who are you in the world?
Ooh, that's a heavy hitter from the start.
Yes, we get right in.
Yeah. Who am I in the world? It's such a funny question that you asked that because I think that's something that I'm continuing to look at and redefine, maybe even right now, and I want to just simplify it to the most simplest form, which is just a compassionate human that's seeking joy in
Mm,
everything that I do. And seeking to remind myself and others of holding space for compassion and knowing that I'm not perfect in either of those things, but knowing that those are that's the core for me right now. It's how do I show myself and others compassion, and how do I find and spark joy in my own life and other lives of others.
So, as we said in your bio, and I know you obviously to be a creative, and so how do you feel that this walk of this compassion or living a compassionate life, how's that impacting your creativity? How's it impacting your art, if it is in any way?
Yeah. So for one, I think it's allowing me to be more free in my art because
Mm,
I feel like where I wasn't exhibiting the most compassion was, in trying to pursue perfection,
mm,
perfectionism and just trying to be like the best or be, the greatest. And um, while sure, I think especially in the arts, it's easy for people to desire that, right? Who, of course, you want the accolades, but the reality for me was the compassion showed me, man, I'm just trying to tell a story.
mm.
I'm just trying to be truthful in my story that I'm telling as an actor or as a creator that's showing up for something, and even just compassion for not being the best. So wanting to start things like I'm revisiting. I used to draw and do painting as a child, and
Mm.
I stopped because I had received some criticism, and that was the thing that threw me off track as opposed to, nurtured me. And that now looking back as an adult, I'm like, oh my god, that criticism, I was so good. I just it
Wow.
was just, it was constructive, or something that could have pushed me, and instead it was something that squashed me. So compassion to me is the thing that allows me to start over, just show up fully, to start things new, to come as in a childlike, bring a childlike wonder. It's through that compassion of like, you don't have to be the best, you don't have to be the greatest, you don't even have to be good, but just do the thing. And sometimes that's enough, and sometimes that's what brings out whatever, the necessary result is.
Mhm, mhm. And so you draw, and I'd love to know how you got into art. I mean, how you got into acting. I don't think we ever talked about like when you decided that this was what you wanted to do.
Sure, sure, yeah. So I mean, I do come from a bit of a, it's definitely family based. I think the acting. So my
Mm,
mother studied acting at Spelman College back in the sheesh. When was she there? She'll kill me if I get this wrong. Right, 60s or 70s? I think she graduated the early 70s, if I'm not mistaken.
okay. Okay.
Um, and that so that's just something I've always knew since I was a child that my mother had pursued acting. She ended up she was at Spelman when she was there with Sam Jackson's wife, Latanya Richardson Jackson, and then and then all the counterparts of the men who were at Morehouse. So that includes Sam Jackson and Spike Lee and Bill Nunn and um, you know, a large group of those humans that I just knew
Ah.
from a child. I never knew. I don't know any of them personally, but because my mother left, acting, left Atlanta and kind of had a different life. But it was just something that was always prevalent in our household, I guess, if that makes sense. We would watch
Mm.
those films and my mom would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see them," or "I'm so excited for, such and such." And she would just tell us, about how that was dreams of hers. And then eventually, as we were kids, she started doing things like church pageants and things like that. She dabbled again. Briefly, I want that for her again at some point in her life, but she dabbled
Mm.
again in acting when we were kids, doing like I'm remembering when I was little. I mean, this might have even been before elementary school, but I'm having this brief memory of her in playing Mary Magdalene in the church play,
Oh,
and
wow.
be seeing my mother on stage. And I don't know, I don't think that I knew then that I wanted to be an actor, but I can just say like the seeds were planted, right? I was seeing theater and seeing
Yeah.
these things and understanding someone who had a passion for it and who knew of people who had great success in the thing.
Yeah.
Um, I think it really hit me in high school. My junior year of high school, I was prior to that I had been cheerleading and running track and field, and I was very active in high school. It was like all of the did child I was doing the most. Looking back, I'm like, oh, I'm tired of thinking about it. But I was in student council. I was in like every club you could think of. I was probably in it. And so I quit cheerleading after my sophomore year because the acting competition was in the fall. And
Mm.
that's when we had to focus on cheerleading. And there were other reasons why I quit cheerleading as well, but that's maybe another podcast or another question. But to focus on the acting part, how I started, so that fall I went to the competition. I was able to do the thing that I hadn't been able to do because I'd been cheerleading in the fall, and then I won Best Actress in my junior year.
Wow.
But it was a big deal for me,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of a little bit of a confirmation of like, oh, hey, girl, there's something to this. And my brother had been doing shows and acting and stuff the same. Like, I mentioned my mother, of course, because she was the initial spark of interest, but I also had been seen and followed my older brother doing some of that stuff that he did in high school as well. And so I had that first kind of confirmation of like, hey, sis, like you're kind of good at this. So this is something you could do in that junior year of high school. And in my senior year, I did a pageant. I won, I won the pageant and I won the award for talent, which was acting, which to me was like another like, whoa, I didn't expect to win. I don't know if I expected to win any of it, but to be honest. But I certainly didn't expect to win the talent portion because when you look
Yeah.
at your kid, you look at the pageants, everybody's winning for is always the dancer or the singer or the musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
actors. I've seen other girls do acting or boys do acting, but like
That's true.
they never won. So
Yeah.
I think that was really special for me because it really kind of affirmed like there was some room for me you
Mm.
know, um, and it affirmed my talent
Mm.
um, in a way that I think as a child, I was still a child, teenager, but you know, it kind of gave me that drive to move forward and to pursue the thing.
Yeah.
When I got into my dream school, moved to New York City, and the rest was history. So I think it was just that early on, I had these confirmations that said, yeah, you're good at this thing. Keep doing this
Wow.
thing, and you enjoy this thing. And that was one of my, I guess, identifiers of you step into the world and you say, "What am I to do?" And
Hmm.
those were some of those confirmations for me that put me on the pursuing acting as a career path.
Early on. And so you say you got into your dream school. And so what school was that?
I went to New York University, NYU.
Uh-huh.
Um, and coming from Columbia, South Carolina, which is where I was living, that was a huge deal for me. I
Yeah.
only applied to 3 colleges, which is, again, as an adult, I look at a lot of things as an adult, and I'm like, girl, what was you doing, baby? Um,
Oh my
but
gosh.
one of the, NYU was like the goal, right? And then I had,
Huge.
even now looking back on it, even my safe schools were pretty decent schools, but Spelman was one of the schools I had applied to and got into, but as a, for my grades and accolades, also as a legacy. But I knew because of my mother's story and history there. Um, Basically, as an actor during her time, she just kind of was like, I don't know, because I don't want to discourage anyone who is going to Spelman for acting. Now that I'm,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm not saying that, if that's what you're doing, do that and
Yeah.
thrive and flourish, and there's room for you to do that. But um, my mother had kind of discouraged it based off of her experience. And so it was kind of like if I were to have gone to that school, I felt like I would have just taken a different path. That was just kind of
Mhm.
the guidance I was receiving, and I just felt like I was listening at that as spiritual guidance too. I was like, well, okay, God, if you don't send me to New York, then perhaps I'm doing something else.
Right, right.
Um, and I was okay. I was at peace with that possibility, but as we know, that's not what happened. And so I kind of took that as a spiritual confirmation for me to do the thing.
I love the spiritual confirmation, like all of these things for people who might be listening, who might be somewhere in a small town or maybe even a bigger town wanting to, follow this dream. So how was it for you when you got to New York City?
Yeah, I speak of that too, and I also say I don't want to discourage anybody from going to any school that's not in these big cities. You don't have to start
Sure.
there, but I think what I knew for me, because I was coming from South Carolina, because I had a mother who had pursued it and then that it didn't become her career path. I I really knew for me, I was like, I need to push. I need to be in the place where it happens. I need to, I need to make sure that I am putting myself in the place where I can learn and get as much possible. And also, if I'm being honest, partially because I knew that if I didn't do it when I was young and bold, maybe I would have never made that move, on my
Mhm,
own.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so some of that was just me knowing for myself as well, right? I just needed that cushion, that to kind of get me in, and I forever am thankful for that because moving to New York for a lot of people is really daunting and scary in the beginning. And I was lucky to have done it as a student because even it was still daunting and scary at 18.
Yeah,
But I had this umbrella of so many others were doing it with me because we are all kids, we're all students,
yeah.
and of course there's programs and people teaching you and taking you places. And um so I say that to say, like, I think I was veered from the question, but I think how was it? It's the question, right? So I was like, it was scary.
Yes, how
It was,
was it? But it sounds
um,
like it was. I mean, you're answering it, so yeah,
yeah,
how
so it
was
was like
it?
it was scary, it was very scary for me. I had never even been to New York. We didn't have the finances to have visited. I didn't visit any colleges. I mean, like I said, Spelman was on the radar because we lived close to Atlanta and I was born there,
Right.
and my mom had went there, so I had seen Spelman, but I hadn't done any college campus visits. It wasn't just this wasn't something we did or had the means to do or the foresight to do. Um, so I rolled up, we drove, the 14 hours from South Carolina to New York City and rolled up, and I lived on Union Square, which if you know New York, you know that that's kind of a big deal. It's a big, busy place to live. I had no
Yes.
clue
Oh my
what I was
gosh.
moving into. Now I look back like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I lived on Union Square. Um, and so it was, I don't want to say I mean, it was definitely scary. I remember being terrified to ride the subway. I had
Same.
to, I had to have a friend or two take me places in the first few times. Um, I think that I also just had this awe and this wonder. I remember first time seeing that there was like sparkling and glitter in the concrete on Broadway. Um, and even down by NYU where the School of the Arts, Tisch School of the Arts is, it was like, oh my God, the streets are sparkling on Broadway, and so there was like this
Oh
mixture,
shoot.
right? There's this mixture of fear and wonder,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
in gratitude for that experience because I stayed in New York for a very long time, for 16 years, almost 17, and that experience, I think, prepared me for the world in a lot of ways, to be
Definitely.
able to approach things with fear and wonder. to know that it's okay to have the fear, but to also face it, and then even the wonder can live aside just beside it, and magical things can occur on the other side of both.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my chimes just started going as you're talking
Oh,
about magical things. That's so funny.
I love it.
And then I hit my microphone. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. It's interesting because I moved to New York as a fully formed adult. And I
Mm,
remember when I first got here, I was driving down Nostrand and I just like pulled over and just started bawling because I was just like so afraid. And it was like maybe my second week here. And I was like, what have I done? And I mean, I was
yeah,
a fully formed adult. Like,
yeah, it's scary.
probably twice the age you were when you moved here. And I had lived in different places, but again, it was just like, oh my gosh. And same with the subway. I would give myself time limits, like I'm gonna be back home before it gets dark, and then I would
Yeah,
stretch it to 11 o'clock, and I'd be like, then after a while, I just, you know,
you
got
fall
in
in,
the
you
swing
get
of
in the flow.
things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
It's definitely, especially again, once if you're from there, you live in New York, then you may not know how unique it is if you're from there or you live in New York, right? Because it's
Yeah,
just the way things are. But if you're
yeah,
not from there, you've ever visited, it's just like it's so different from most of the other parts of the U.S. And so I think that that's part of it. But also, I think, like you just mentioned, as an adult. So now I live in L.A., right?
yeah.
I'm in Los Angeles, and I did move to Los Angeles as an adult, and so I still can relate to that because I did feel some of that moving here. Maybe not as much of the same wonder that I kind of felt in New York City, but there
Mm,
was certainly excitement. There's a desire, and the reasons why I moved here were clear. But also there was still the fear. I had so then because as I mentioned, I moved to New York at 18, so I wasn't driving. I know you drive, Zoe, but
yeah.
I didn't drive in New York City.
Oh my gosh.
So here I am, a full adult
Yeah.
who doesn't. I mean, I took lessons, I got my license, and I took lessons in Brooklyn and before I moved, and then I got here, but I wasn't somebody who had ever driven regularly. I'd never owned a car, and if I had driven, it was always like years in between, so there was still a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety built up around that. So I suppose to the subway being scary out in LA was the driving that was
Yes.
scary, and same thing. So now, little by little, I've been conquering that. I've been driving now just for a year and a half, as of 2022, early 2022, and so
Okay.
I started driving in the pandemic on purpose so that
Oh, good idea.
so that I could first of all just have something to do with myself, you
Oh,
know,
wow. Yeah.
during this downtime,
Yeah.
um, but also that I could do it while the LA streets were not as busy, and
Yeah.
so it was like, whoa, like this gave me a chance to learn the skill of driving, even though, like I said, I was licensed, and I not only
Yeah.
licensed but as a licensed driver,
Mhm.
as well as before getting my license. So I had taken all the lessons, but I just hadn't put it to constant use and constant action. And so even now, I still laugh when I'm on the highway because I still my nerves. It's always making sure that my nerves are as calm as they can be. It's not a lack of the skill of the driving, right? It's like I physically
Right.
know what to do, but sometimes my
Right.
nervousness is the thing that I have to conquer
Yeah.
as a driver.
Yeah, that's right. As a driver. So I'm really curious about your spiritual journey as well. I want to shift to that and then maybe talk a little bit about what brought you to LA, why you left us.
Sure. Not why you left us.
That's right. That's right. Why you
Yeah.
left us. But before we talk about my bitterness, let's talk about your spiritual journey and how did you, get into the healing work that you're doing now? How did you get into yoga and all of that?
Sure, sure. And actually, it's perfect because I think that the spiritual journey will also inform the move
Yes,
eventually,
I
right?
know. Yes.
Um, but so, okay, child, and this is where I'm like even looking at time clocks. I'm like, how do I make a long story short? Zoe,
Mm,
stop me if I just keep going and going, okay? Because I have
okay,
a
I will.
tendency, and there's a lot of moving parts to that.
Okay.
But to begin at the beginning,
Yes.
I my real true spirituality started as a child in church.
Mm,
I grew up in the South where everything was religious. And if you weren't going to church in South Carolina, people were looking at you crazy.
Mm,
But my mother, still, as I mentioned, I first saw her in church pageant and the church
mhm,
plays. My mother was like directing the church plays and things like that. Um, but to add to just church, I went to these spiritual churches where they talked about spirituality versus religiosity, um, and we're doing, the speaking of tongues, the laying on of hands, the laughter, and drunkenness in the Holy Spirit, the falling out in spirit, the prophecy, prophetic words, speaking over people you don't know, um, and so I was exposed to a lot of those things and miraculous things, gold dust falling from the sky. Like, I have a gold dust story, and so these were things that is funny to say, but I was like, I learned magic in the church in a
Wait,
lot of
we gotta
ways.
go wait a minute. You gotta tell this gold dust story. You can't just say you saw dust falling from the sky and then just like I gotta hear this gold dust story.
So okay, so this was what timeline was this in life? Like, I feel like this was the '90s. This was the
Okay.
'90s, and it was kind of a theme in the churches that it was definitely going through. That I was going to religious circuit was they were talking about miracle signs and wonders. And as part of talking about miracle signs and wonders, started talking about just different miraculous things that were happening. One of which was gold dust. And so we had a speaker come to our church. And so this was a church in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm not sure that that church still exists. I think it's, I'm not, I don't think it's still there. I'm not sure, but at that time the church we were going to had a guest, and he was one of the traveling, uh, Christian speakers who had been known to have the miracle of the gold dust with him. Um, and so I remember I was a kid, it was the '90s. It was me and the youth. We had we had a very strong youth group at this church, and a lot of the kids from the youth group were sitting together in the back talking. This man is, speaking over people, and everybody's wanting the gold dust. Everybody's like seeking the gold dust. Like, I want gold dust on me. I want gold dust on me.
Yeah.
And I'm about to. I didn't even. I'm laughing all my podcasts lately, but things I'm just like, oh, I get emotional really fast, and it's a new thing for me, and I'm trying to embrace it. But I just like a rush, almost of tears even came to me before I even said the thing. And
Mm.
I just address that out loud now because I never considered myself to be super emotional, but it's happening a lot lately, and I'm having to embrace it. Anyway, um, so I learned a pivotal life lesson from this, and I was sitting with the youth kids, and everybody, not just the kids, everybody in the church was like seeking the gold dust, and I kind of remember looking at what was happening and just kind of saying out loud. I said it out loud to the kids with me, and I was like, I want to be the person who sprinkles the gold dust. And
Mm.
I don't know what I was thinking as a kid that why
Mm.
that's what I thought or said,
Mm.
but I did. I said it out loud to the other kids, and I just remember when I went up to the front of the church. He was speaking over everyone. Like, I just, I was laid on hands, passed out, woke up, and I was covered in gold dust, covered, and people were, looking. It was a thing. It was like, oh my gosh, like, Syhaya, how did you get all this gold dust? What were you thinking? What did you do? And to know that it was, I mean, I was a child, like, the pureness of like, I didn't ask for the gold dust. I asked to be the person who could do that for others.
Wow, Sahaya.
And yeah, just I hadn't thought of that in a while, and I think, just even thinking about it now, it's like that's the reminder of like, and that's when I woke up covered in gold dust, you know. And that's something I know that as a child I think I carried with me a lot. And here I am as an adult in this moment
Yeah.
reminding myself.
Yes.
But and then of course then the speaker, like, he spoke to me afterward. It was a big thing because I was everybody, everybody wanted to know why are you, what,
'Cause you
other,
went to sleep. You, like, literally fell out and woke up and there was gold dust on you.
yeah, I'm in the front of the church, this is a
Yeah.
thing, and he was doing this kind of with everyone, but
Yes.
I had the most. It was like I had the most
Ashe. You
dust.
had the most ashe. You had the most ashe.
Yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
so he spoke to me. I remember he was also of Native American heritage, and so we spoke a bit about that,
Wow.
and he was just speaking life into me because again I was still a child at the time. I was maybe probably preteen. I don't remember my exact age to be honest, but like maybe 13, 14, somewhere in that zone.
That's old enough. So,
Um,
wow. I thought you
yeah,
were like 7. No, you were like,
yeah, it was in middle school for sure because we
wow.
didn't move to South Carolina until middle school. So I guess I said preteen. I might have been actual teen, but the earlier stages. So we moved to South
Yeah.
Carolina when I was in sixth grade. So I know
Okay.
that it was either sixth grade or after, um, but probably before the thick of high school. So somewhere in that window. Um, but yeah, so that definitely started. Was a pivotal part of my journey. And then that church, we had a strong youth group, and then we also went to camps. That's y'all. I have to watch this documentary. Everybody says like there's this church camp documentary, and people are terrified by it. I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you if that's what my experience was. But I
Okay.
did go to church camps, and we did. They would have us in rooms, like teaching us spiritual gifts. They were like, "These are your spiritual gifts. You learn the art of spiritual gifts. Everybody has spiritual gifts. That we used to have church songs, stir up the gifts." And I remember that, like, stir up the gifts, and it would just be like trying to identify people's spiritual gifts and from a church perspective. And I do remember even like there was a room where we were like learning to speak in tongues. It was just like they just taught us like just speak, just pray, call to spirit, and speak, and again it's like preteens in a room learning to speak in tongues, and that was my experience. Um, and in one of those church camp experiences, I ended up prophesying over someone.
This
Yeah.
is riveting. Girl, I'm like,
I don't usually get to go so deep into
we
this story of my history of spirituality, right? I don't even, like I said, I don't even always think about it all at once. So thank you
this
for
is
this time to like, dissect it because it is my story.
it's all making sense. Your charmed life. It's like all making sense. Like, okay, so let's get to the prophecy.
Yes, yes. So this was like maybe the second or third year of me going to church camp. I think eventually the church camps got stopped because somebody drowned at camp, and it was like a whole thing. And um, so they stopped camps for a while. And by the time, if they ever even restarted, I was too old, too grown. So
Yeah.
we weren't involved anymore. But so
Yeah.
the very last one, we had moved already from that first venue that we used to go to. It was like a venue that we used to go to. It was like a big lake and stuff like that. And so because
Yeah.
safety issues, we moved to like a smaller place. I remember we were like staying like in a motel and then just going to like, or a hotel maybe, a little maybe nicer,
Yeah.
but it wasn't nice. Like
Yeah.
it was just like a place that kids were
Yeah.
staying, and then we would drive to like this little church where we would do the camps, which was like a much smaller scale than the original camp had been. But I remember we were back in the room doing our prayers, and speaking in tongues and all that. And so out of that, it was like a way that I would open my channel to connect to spirit, right? My first like foray into doing that. And
Wow.
I don't fully remember whether they were instructing us to pray over others, but I feel like they must have because I don't think that I just would walked up to someone. I know that,
Mm.
but I do remember my first time prophesying over someone. So what happened
Mm.
is right now we're speaking in tongues, and then I get this message for this girl,
Mm.
and I know that it was something about a parent of hers. I believe it was her father, and I didn't know her. She wasn't somebody I knew from the camp or anything. I just knew that I got a very clear message about her for her, about her father and her relationship with her father. I just remember going over and telling her, and then her just bawling. So then it was like clear, like okay, and something spiritual is going on here, right? I'm telling someone
Yes.
something that I have no physical access to. Where did that
Yeah.
access come from? That's
Yes.
prophecy.
Yeah.
But because we were already in it, it wasn't as jarring because we knew. But I then had like this crazy spiritual moment after that. I remember I actually had the craziest headache as a kid. I didn't know how to swallow pills. I was too scared. And I remember the camp, our, youth leader had to like help me. He's a military man. We live, Columbia, South Carolina is a big military base. He's a military man. So he had to like hold my nose and pour the Advil down my throat because I had such a heavy headache, because it was like after that happened, after that exchange with her, I was just so overwhelmed with like energy. Now, looking back now, but it was like I just kept crying, and then I had that like most excruciating headache, and it just wouldn't stop. And so I really think it was a way of awakening, like a spiritual awakening in me,
Mm-hmm.
um, that occurred in that moment, and I knew, something had shifted, even though I probably couldn't articulate it back then in the way that I am
Mm-hmm.
now. So that was kind of the beginnings of it, and we did eventually leave that church, and so my mom then went on this journey of trying different churches, but they all still had that spiritual through line. It had to be a church that at least had like prophecy and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So while I didn't have the same close knit aspect of the original youth group, I was still exposed to a lot of those things. And I even remember I was in high school with a friend of mine. He would take me to different churches too. Um, and somebody prophesied over me in one of those churches, and she said that I was like Joyce Meyer, who's a big,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual prophetic teacher. And I was in high school at that point. And so here I am being prophesied that I'm like Joyce Meyer, and I took it from someone at their, church program. And I'm just like, okay, my high school
Mm-hmm.
self is standing up like, okay, yes, that's what I'm gonna, I'm gonna be like that. And I don't know, but I
Oh,
don't know what I
okay.
thought or what that meant. But I just remember accepting the call in a way,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is ironic because, you know, that's my childhood story of spirituality and how I got into it. But what then shifted, right? I went to college and not thinking about any of that stuff. Not only that,
Mm-hmm.
but of course I went to New York University and in New York City, and I am learning about colonization and the forcing of these religions on my people, and starting to have a deep separation from, the way of the church and the stronghold that it had on my people and people of color. And so that created a very strong disconnect for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it left a space where I really wasn't, pursuing, I wasn't comfortable in the church in the ways that I had been growing up. Not only
Mm-hmm.
that, as I mentioned, that was a very specific church experience. So I'm finding that once I left that bubble of those place churches in the South, that a lot of
Yeah.
churches were just, we just having service, singing a dry song, and sorry, no offense to
Yes.
anybody, um, but singing a song and going home. And I was just like, well, that ain't it for me. Like, I need a praise and worship where I'm ready to cry and
Yeah.
fall out,
Yeah.
and so, you
Not
know.
crying, fall out. It's not Sunday if you're not crying,
Like,
falling out.
what are we even
Oh my God.
doing? So I think that also, right, I had in as a child in New York, yeah, I still consider 18 a child, even though you might be doing adult things.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I was just like, I wasn't really even able to find the type of church that resonated with me.
Yeah.
Um, and then last but not least, I started, I first, as a college student, I started learning yoga, but I probably took my first real class in 2007. But I was learning probably elements of it, probably 2005, 2006. And so this must have been around 2007, 8, or 9, somewhere in that zone, because I know that at that point I had been practicing yoga regularly, and really feeling the benefits of that in my body. And as I mentioned previously, I was also a track athlete. So being taken away from athleticism in college, I I found some solace when I found yoga, because it
Mm.
was a way that my adult self could channel some of my athleticism, which was originally why I pursued yoga. I was not pursuing yoga for spiritual reasons. Um,
Mhm.
and so I was able to do that. But of course, you know, the ding
I know, right? It's like, go ahead, sorry.
sounded
Maybe
beautiful.
that was something else. We'll just
I know.
take it. We've
It's
got the
just,
chimes out here. We've got more chimes.
I love it. The reading about to be juicy.
I know. I
but
know.
um, but yeah. So I, um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I started. So if you practice yoga long enough, you realize that you are, receiving spiritual, um, downloads and peace and
Yeah.
inner peace. But of course, like I said, I originally approached it more from an athletic perspective. But as I got into the practice, I really began to value the practice of yoga and the practice of, and the effects that was having on my life as a
Mm.
human, really, and then as a spiritual being. And so, longer story short, term, because I know it's already been a long, would
No, I love
be,
it. I love it. I'm into
um,
it. Falling out,
yes,
obsession. This is listen, this is what I want this podcast to be all about. So I'm
all the
here for it.
things, yes. And so, so then I found this church that finally kind of reminded me of my home churches, you know, and I really was excited because it was still kind of a mega church and it was in the heart of New York City in Times Square. It was a really big church. And I would go and I had a few other friends that were going from college and I was inviting people and I was excited. And I remember I went one day and they had like a guest speaker and then he started talking about spiritual warfare and speaking against the things of the devil. And then he kind of brought up that yoga was a thing of the devil and that we needed to come
Mhm,
against it and speak
mhm.
against it and pray against it. And it lost me. I had this big disconnect because I was like, what? Like, then you really don't, then y'all not out here practicing then clearly because how could you say that yoga is of the devil when it's so beneficial? Um, and since then, I've definitely still learned more of the ideology in Hinduism and yoga as mysticism, and I understand that certain religions and religious aspects are going to have problems with something that's rooted in other religious aspects. Um, but even that was still a disconnect that I needed to make because then I needed to continue to go on in my education and learn the history of things and learn the history of
That's
religion and
right.
I decided no longer to take just the information that was given to me at face value and so in that time I chose yoga over that,
Yeah, that's right.
because I knew what it was doing for me. And so that was the rift, it was like that was the last hope of even being in a church that felt similar to my childhood and then still fighting and feeling that
Mhm.
disconnect. Just kind of sent me on a different journey. And so now to the adult side of things, right? And I'll try to
Yeah.
streamline that a little bit more concise than I did the childhood one. But like
No,
I
I
said, we
love
don't always
it.
get
It's a
time to
journey.
go into the childhood one. And I guess that really is a big part of who I am.
Yeah.
Um, but so then my adult journey began, like I said, so there you have the plantings of it was with yoga, my yoga practice. Um, then my dear friend Freddie Pearson came to me one day. Freddie is Zoe and I know Freddie and practice Reiki with Freddie, and so it comes in my Reiki story. Freddie was learning Reiki, and at the time he'd already been doing Pilates, and I had been studying Pilates with him, and I had been also studying yoga with him privately. He was my first teacher to teach me yoga. I did eventually get my certification, but at the
Mm.
time he was giving me private lessons on how to teach yoga, and
Mm.
as well as teaching me Pilates. So we were kind of like in this unintentional for me or him maybe, but like we were in this like I was in like school with Freddie, like just learning
Mhm.
different modalities. And so Reiki came up. It wasn't something I had really heard of. It wasn't something I was into. This was around 2010.
Mhm.
um, and he was like, "Hey, I'm trying this new thing. We're trying this new thing called Reiki. You mind if I try it on you?" I was like, "Okay, word, let's do it." Don't even know what I done signed up
So
for.
us. This is so us, right?
And so I'm at my Brooklyn apartment, Franklin Ave, Franklin and Atlantic. Big ups, Brook. So we're sitting in my Brooklyn apartment. I'm in a chair, and he's just starts to, administer Reiki over me. And in that time, he just had me place my hands on my body, and then he would place his hands on top of mine.
Mhm.
And from the chair, we just went down through the different parts of my body. But when we got to my belly, I had this intense pain. I didn't know where it was coming from. I thought I got sick out of the blue.
Mhm.
I was like, oh my God, wait. We can't continue. We have to stop this
Mhm.
session. My stomach is in deep pain. I don't know what's going
Mhm.
on. I'm so sorry, but we have to stop." And he calmly stayed there for a few moments with my frantic outburst and my it was a deep physical pain in my belly. And he said, "Okay, okay, but just like for a few moments, just stay with me and just breathe. Take deep breaths." And I believe he put his hands on the top of my feet at that time. And I just like hunched over and was holding my belly. And I just felt this crazy pain. And then all of a sudden I started crying. And it was like the most intense, magical release. I just cried. I just cried all of my belly pain away. And then I knew, and he maybe knew all along that that was the Reiki. That was the work. I had been holding this pain inside of my belly, inside of my womb, and in that moment, I I woke up to that, and I released some things thanks to that session. And so we finished the session after I had that realization and release. And then of course I was like, okay, what is this thing?
Yeah,
What is
right?
Reiki, my friend? Like,
Yeah,
what is
I
you doing?
know, right? When you think about the Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes, yes. And so that began my journey with Reiki. That was, like I said, that was
Yeah,
around 2010. And
yeah.
so I continued to be a student and receive the energy work, and then B, I started to learn it myself and how to administer it. And eventually, as you know, then I began to teach it to others as well, and co-host on Reiki trainings. And along that journey, just kind of the other things kept sprinkling in. So just as I was learning Reiki, a lot of it stemmed from either our friendship or just me in like yoga events. I would go to like goddess events and circles in New York, and I would learn like people would have different like cards, oracle decks. The first tarot card called me. I just was like, I remember I was at a store getting crystals, which again was something. So I used to collect. That's another childhood thing. I used to collect crystals as a kid, not knowing that there
Mm,
was anything spiritual tied to it. I had
wow,
several large amethysts. I was obsessed with amethysts as a child.
wow.
I just thought they were pretty, and
Yeah,
pyrite. I kept some amethyst and some pyrite with me as a kid. And it's funny now because I was a very successful child. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
girl, bring it back.
yeah,
um, but those were things that I loved those things, and we went because we lived in the Carolinas. So even I was in North Carolina before South Carolina, and
yeah.
we had the mountains, and went to the mountains, and we go to like the crystal shops in the mountains, and I would get these pretty crystals, and so I had them, and I had like
See,
what I called a rock collection. I was
yes.
also obsessed with the geodes and stuff. So again, as an adult, as I began to relearn what those things were,
Mm,
all from that tunnel, I guess 2007, 2010, and then beyond until now,
mhm.
obviously, I began to collect crystals and understand the meanings and learn about using them in meditation. I even got a crystal chakra kit was one of the first things I got. Um, and the cards came about. I eventually went to an angel healing session because I was doing energy work at a job. Um, it was like a so I used to do this work where I would be a presenter at job health days. So they would
Mhm.
hire presenters to teach their employees about different topics. And so I did that. I taught about yoga, led chair yoga classes, regular yoga classes, or energy work. And so this happened to be one that I was doing the yoga, and they had somebody else for energy work. And so because I had done energy work at some of these sessions as well as a Reiki practitioner, I was like, "Oh, what kind of energy work do you do?" And she's like, "Oh, I do this angel healing work." And I was like, "What is that?" Sat down, got a complimentary brief session, and I started coughing. So think you can see things are very physical in my body. So am
Yeah.
I coughing in the middle of this session? And I was like, "Oh my god, I have this chronic throat pain that I've been." She's like, "Yeah, you clear out your throat chakra." And I was like, "You want to come to me for a real session?" I was like, "Oh hell yeah, I do." Um, so that's Deborah Soul. She's I think still located in Brooklyn, and she ended up writing a book about it. I think it's Heal by Faith, something like that.
Hmm.
Deborah Soul Angels. I'll look it up and give you the information later if
Yeah,
anyone's seeking that.
yeah.
But I went to her for multiple sessions and learned about kind of dealing with angels in a way that wasn't necessarily. under the church umbrella. And so that
Right.
opened up, eventually led to me getting angel oracle decks, because then I started feeling like called to work with angels, and because of some of the things that were coming through her to me about me, it was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like that actually partnered with, eventually will cue in my time with Zoe Flowers. But so that was another. She was somebody who told me about an ancestor that was watching over me. One of the
Mm.
first people. She was the second person who told me the specific ancestor. Prior to that, actually, I forgot I had gotten an Akashic record reading. Um, After
Mm.
my yoga teacher training, that was around 2016. I got my yoga teacher training. One of the fellow yoga students in my training, Sydney Campos, who I think she still does readings and work for people as well. But at that time, she was starting to newly offer her Akashic record readings, and so she'd given me a reading, and out of that came one of my ancestors' names, and I was
Mm.
clear on that was the first time I had heard very clearly like this ancestor is with you and watching over you, and then that was
Mm.
reiterated in that angel reading. So then I knew, okay, I got to pay attention to this.
Mhm.
Um, and so we will then, fast forward and cue it to Zoe Flowers. We had this reading. Shoot, what year is that, Zoe?
20, was
Maybe
it 2018?
2017, 2018. I think it was the top of 2018, maybe, or the end of 2017. One somewhere in that zone.
Maybe. Yeah.
Um, I believe, yeah, 2018 makes sense because I went to New Orleans, and so that's when. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Um, so in our reading, you had brought up multiple goddess cards and goddess decks. And
Mm.
out of that, you brought up Orisha. You had brought up several
Okay.
goddesses to me and had told me there were some prayers and affirmations for me to do with the goddesses.
That's
But
right.
one of which came up was Oya. And that was my introduction to Orisha. I
Mm.
had not really known much about African traditional religions or any of that um, information. And so I'm like, oh yeah, oh, this is interesting. What does this mean?
Mhm.
But there was from what you gave me in that reading, there was a meditation to follow. And so I
Mhm.
recorded that meditation for myself, and I would play it to myself over and over again, like on the train, at home, whatever. And it was a visualization of a time with Oya. And oh my god, that 2018 was one of the most transformative years of my life, and little did I know at the beginning that, some of this was sparked by her. And you also, during that reading, we talked about ancestral altars, and I think I had previously already learned about the one main ancestor that was watching over me. So after
Mhm.
my conversation with you, I was able to kind of build my altar and really start to say, okay, now I already have the information that she's with me and that others maybe are with me now. How What do I do with that information? And so that started my journey with altar work. I'm still learning on that journey, and hope to learn more. But yeah, so I went to New Orleans after our reading, a couple months
Mm.
after I'd been meditating with that recording with Oya, and I had a friend in New Orleans, and I was like, "Hey sis, like help me out.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
what you know about the Orisha?"
Okay.
Um, Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful sis, Jonay Williams, who at this time of this recording is based in New Orleans, I believe, still, and she's a masterful teacher, a lawyer, entrepreneur, business coach, and healer, but also a friend, and so I went to see her speak. We had arranged for me to come visit while she was doing a talk, and then I was like, okay, girl, can you help me out with this? And she did. She ushered me into giving my first offering um, to Oya, as well as, I was able to meet someone in New Orleans who could talk to me more about the practice of Orisha. And I ended up being so called that I ended up going back the second, this, I just went back in 2018.
Mm.
So I went twice to New Orleans the same year,
Mm.
um, really to kind of learn more. I ended up going to even like the museums there. I don't remember the exact museum, but there were a couple of different museums, and one of them was like a smaller museum of I don't know if it was called the Museum of Voodoo or whatever, but
Mm.
whichever one it was like small, but it was powerful because I was able to really read the history of Ifa, and then how that branched into voodoo, and all the history, the makings, the symbolism, the snake, and power in that way, and just learning, candle magic, all these things. It was just learning. I guess what I'm trying to say. It
Yeah.
sent me on a learning journey. So
Yeah.
I just really started to take in, still learning, but it really opened up. learning more about African traditional religions and how that can play into my life and perhaps the lives of others.
Yeah. I love it. I love this story. So I want to say to the people listening, one, when you come get readings from me, do what I say. Follow the instructions.
Yeah.
But there's also this piece in seriousness. There is this thing about you, Sahaya, that people can, this following instructions piece, this finding teachers, Freddie, myself, your person in New Orleans, even before us,
Yeah.
your church upbringing. So,
Yeah.
in all seriousness, right, folks, it's like you don't have to do this by yourself. And in fact, you'd be better off if you didn't. Like, I definitely have done way too many things by myself. And what that's caused is a lot of bumbling around, a lot of possessions in New Orleans,
Mm.
because I wasn't like Sahaya. I didn't go find somebody, I just stumbled into places and was like, I want to be possessed, and then
Oof.
got possessed.
Oof. Yeah. Mm.
So find people that you can trust and
Definitely.
listen to your intuition. And I'm also hearing from your story, um, listening to your own intuition as well. So it's like, and saying yes to the calls in your life.
Hmm.
And so I'm very excited to do this reading because it's kind of like, there are some very key points here about following your intuition and answering the call. Because at any time, you could have been like, nah, I don't really want to do that. As a matter of fact, I would love to hear from you, um, a time when you said no to your call and what the result was.
It's interesting because as you were just saying that, I was laughing with
Hmm.
myself when I read The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes, and I was,
Oh, I remember when you
and
were reading that.
I was like, I need to be reading the no. I be saying yes all the time. Like, what does the year of no look like? Because
I know that's
I be
right.
saying yes and going on a journey, honey.
Same,
I've
same.
been saying yes. So,
Me too.
thank you for putting that together because I'm like, yep, that tracks. I have been.
Hmm.
But uh, I'll speak to it. And it's funny that you did mention the teachers, and thank you for putting that in perspective for me because I have often felt like I was fumbling around and doing it alone and figuring it out, and clearly not, right? But
Hmm.
because maybe all my teachers were different and sporadic, and it wasn't like in a school type format. Now I can look at it and piece it together. But because it was all just kind of happening sporadically for me, I often did feel alone in that journey. I often felt like, what am I doing? What is all this information? Where's it coming from? What am I supposed to do next? Like, um, wanting, like, I wish there was a mystic school, things like that. I guess my church was a version of that,
Hmm.
but I actually was wishing that I had more structure in my learning. But you did pinpoint the fact that I still did have guidance in my learning, and I wasn't alone. And I did continue to seek classes, and I actually named a few people here, but there's so many more, right? Like I did go to
Hmm.
workshop. I used to go. Alice and Charles, Rockstar Shaman, used to host meditation circles and goddess circles in New York, and I would go, and so here I was like animal journeying with her. And if you follow her, see her, you look at her journey now, it's just, she just released the animal power book, and I'm so excited to get it because I was like, that opened up the channel for me with animal journeying. And I feel like I get messages from animals all the time. And I had gone before that.
Mm.
The Open Center in New York had done like a dream interpretation workshop with a different shaman and had learned about shamanism. So you're right. Like it's like, I would always get these little inklings and follow it. But let me get back to the question, which is the time when I didn't. Um, I won't say that there's a time that I didn't, but I can tell you a time where I felt like it went wrong.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it, and then we'll do your reading.
Yeah, because I was like, I feel like I really do be saying yes, sis. I'll be saying yes, but out here in LA, I decided to try psychedelics. Something I had not done, haven't done since. I've never done ayahuasca or any of those ceremonial things. I had been offered tea once and I was too scared to take it. And so out here, I was offered shrooms, and
Oh, I have, yes.
yeah, and it's LA, so you see people doing shrooms all the
Yeah.
time. People are
Oh, yeah.
happy and having
Mhm.
these joyful, loving shroom experiences, and even at parties, people are just drinking shroom juice. You would be at a house party and somebody drinking some shroom juice. Like, it's just very LA. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is a simple, entryway for me. Um, I do some deep spiritual work to prepare. um, I think Alice and Charles actually had done like a live, um, maybe it was an IG live or something. It just happened to coincide like the night before I was going to be taking my shroom trip, and so she took us on some journey, and I was talking to my ancestors and just going deep. And we had planned it, and we had somebody that was going to be like babysitting us and preparing food, and I was with a friend, and it. I did a lot to prepare
For
for
your
that.
shroom journey.
For my shroom trip. I
Mhm.
prepared for it like it was a major spiritual transition,
Okay.
and what ensued was in the first maybe even 20 minutes, I'm vomiting uncontrollably. I'm seeing stars. I'm on the floor. I'm I'm cleaning up my vomit because I don't want anybody else to. I'm feeling embarrassed, and then people are saying these are the normal parts, right? But so when we get to the maybe less normal part of a shroom trip is then I was sitting in the living room trying to function around other people, and I just couldn't. So I just like went and closed myself off in my room, which I also
Mm.
have learned since then. People are like, no, don't like be around
Right.
people, but I
That's
didn't
right.
know, and
Right.
I'm thinking that I was about to have this major spiritual experience, which to be fair, I think I did.
Yeah.
But so what happens? What ensues is just like 4 hours of torture.
Yes.
Um, and honestly, looking back on it, right, it was up leveling, it was upgrading, but it certainly didn't feel like that, right? It was like when did people talk about death, spiritual death. It's like I died, like I was like screaming in the bathroom, like I just felt like I was getting these downloads about how I needed to stand up for my people. I was feeling like ancestral pain. I
Mm.
was feeling wounding. I was feeling violence, whiteness, and this happened June 2020, May 2020 when this was going on. So it was
Mm.
May 2020 because I can speak to that because later I realized I experienced this right before the uprisings.
Yeah.
So but I'm feeling crazy in that moment. I'm like, why am I in my personal shroom trip trying to do my own spiritual awakening, feeling violence from whiteness, and it didn't make sense because then, like,
Yeah.
last thing I know, the second half of the year was violence from, and
Sure.
brutality, and
Yeah.
everything was an upheaval. But I didn't know that at that time,
Yeah.
you know, that that's what was coming, and so I just was feeling it. I was crying, and then I kept hearing about transmuting. The word transmute kept coming up, and so
Mm.
again, now looking back, I can learn that that was a message for me to like as a healer and as just a human, just to learn how to transmute the pain, but not knowing
Mhm.
what the pain was and where it was coming from. It was just too much. And I just remember just shaking and being literally, I think I said out like, this is too much. This is too much, you know. And so at the time, I actually was doing some work. I had an Oracle deck, Isis Oracle deck, and I had
Oh,
been doing work to open my third eye even prior to the reading. Yet again, all the preparation I had been doing going in. So
yeah.
that's the time where I can finally get to like, oh, I said no. I put that deck away for a
Yes.
long time because I was like, if I open my third eye and that's what's happening, close that thing. Sort of joking, but um, but yeah, so that could kind of segue
Yeah.
into that no, because so much happened. It was so intense. I just felt so um violated with the information. Even if I can look back now and be like it was good and I up leveled, it was just like so hard. It was like every pain, so much of my pain in my entire life came up in that moment. And I just know
Mm.
that if I wasn't surrounded by the spiritual people and support of others that I had at that time, that could have been a dark, groundbreaking moment. I could see now why people lose themselves
Yeah.
in these kinds of things, because if somebody else had that kind of an experience and didn't have any support, I can't imagine what I would have done. So I can only imagine what somebody else would have done.
Right.
And I had to call on support. It was dark coming out of
Yeah.
it. It was two
Yeah.
weeks in the dark. I wouldn't, I could not leave my bed until darkness.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I didn't eat for like a week. I was just like drinking like water, fruit water. Um, it was crazy, and intense. And like I said, I didn't really know going into it what I thought I knew. Well, maybe I did. And so now what I've heard from others is that maybe I did too much, right? Because I'm seeing
Maybe you
people
did
do
too
this,
much.
drinking this juice at parties. I'm like, well, that don't be happening to them. But it was like because I had done so much spiritual preparation,
You were
and I prep,
so open.
yeah, I had
I
just,
understand.
yeah, and maybe took too much as well, a
Yeah.
combination of both.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a time when
Yeah.
spirituality, like I said, in hindsight, I can also talk about how it served me, but I also can say that was a dark, it
Yeah.
was a dark time. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I too have a mushroom journey that we can talk about offline. 7
Yes, please.
hours. 7 hours for me.
Yeah, I believe it because that was the thing. It's like, and at this point, I'm like, I'm over it, and there's nothing you can do. Like, it just won't end. It just won't end. It wouldn't end.
Yeah. It doesn't end. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
no end in sight. I'm like, when's this gonna end?
but
And then
yeah.
I go to sleep. I wake up and it's still like no end.
Dude, I told you it's like 2 weeks of darkness. The
It's
trip had ended,
outrageous.
but I wasn't the same, you know, for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. But maybe whatever it needed to, whatever happened needed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, because like I said, I did have support lined up, and it showed me
Mm-hmm.
that I needed more support in my life. So,
Mm.
it was a catalyst for a lot of deep healing.
Wow.
It wasn't the end of the journey by any means. It was,
Right.
and I wouldn't say it was the beginning either, because I'd already been deep in my journey. But it was like
Right.
a catalyst that pushed me into the ways of healing that I needed, and it
Right.
pushed me into seeking and receiving the support that I needed, and it pushed
Right.
me into showing up for myself in ways that I didn't even know I wasn't.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Let's get into this reading. So let's do this. Let's just go ahead and let your shoulders drop. Let your top lid fold over your bottom lid. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths in. And actually, what I'm seeing is breathing in just like a white mist, almost like you're breathing in a cloud. And then we're going to exhale out yellow. So just taking a moment and just breathing in and letting that cloud go all the way up to your top of your head, almost filling your entire skull cavity. And then exhaling out just a yellow mist. Inhaling again, letting the mist clear out any energies that may interrupt our reading. Exhaling out yellow. Inhaling in again, holding it, exhaling out, and just saying your name, your full name to yourself 3 times. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And let's get into this reading. So, do you have specific questions? Did you want overall energy?
I definitely want overall energy.
Okay.
I think if these maybe aren't specific questions, as maybe they are just guidance for where that overall energy that I'm seeking is I am I am looking at I'm looking for where to focus my energy, how to focus my energy. Um,
I love it. Don't say anything else. I'm pulling from the Seasons of the Witch Beltane Oracle. Where to focus your energy. So, I actually have boundaries here, and it actually came up in reverse. And isn't it
mhm.
interesting? Oh my gosh. First of all, you saw that. This is the only reason why I can't wait till we can actually do this in video. But you see that yellow, maybe I can turn this ring light down. you see this red circle around her.
Mhm.
And did we not blow out the yellow circle?
He did. It looks even
Oh my
like
God.
mist. It looks like
And
white mist and
you see that
yellow.
white mist? This is a
Mhm.
brand new deck. I just got this deck last week. So a lot of these I haven't even seen. Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
Wow.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So this should be actually, this should be your meditation. So before you leave the house, not that like you don't have to do that meditation that we did, but the way she's encircled, it's like, and this is like a pinkish haze to it, which is also interesting. So I'm also feeling like some sacral chakra work
Mm.
because of this red here. Um, and you were also talking about your painting and things like that. So definitely being more creative. And there might even be some other other things that you haven't done in a long time. Like I don't know if you dance or sing or something like that, or do like sound
Mm.
healing. But that's also something that could be very good for you. But let's get back to these boundaries. So setting firmer energetic boundaries and adding that to the spiritual, practice that you're already doing. So imagining this pink, and I'll take a picture of this pink circular around you, and then this gold. Oh my God. And we were talking about gold dust. I literally cannot. I'm literally done. And so, yeah, setting boundaries here. And then we have the number three, and that's like the triplicity, the triple goddess, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. So we already know three is a magic number. That's also the number of Eshu, and Ifa, the trickster who stands at the crossroads. Also, nothing I'm glad we're recording because they're going fast. Um, so nothing, you can't enter into any type of ritual without first calling in Legba or Eshu or Elegba, right? Depending on which faction of him you are dealing with. And so that's the thing for you with these boundaries. It's like nothing should be able to go through without you having your boundaries in place. And so if things aren't going the way you want them to go, because we also have mountains back here, and whenever we see mountains, that means areas of growth. Also spending more time at the water. Um, Nothing can go through if your boundaries are not like it's like the boundaries need to be like click, like locked in, like no, you shall not pass, you shall go no further. They're done with this deck.
That's wild. It means so much to me already.
So that's the first thing. The first thing is boundaries
Yeah.
and putting a ring around yourself. A
Mm.
ring of energy, a ring of protective energy. Oh, I love it. We love the 9 of cups. Yes, this is what we're talking about. And this is where we're going. Once we set our boundaries,
Ooh, she look
we have
cute.
our cups. Yeah. Yeah, she has
She
all of her
happy.
cups. Yeah, she's she's got it going on. The 9 of cups also can be a warning of greed, although I don't think that's anything that we really have to worry about with you. But cups is about emotions, right? And so this is a person where she's got her emotions intact. And why does she have her emotions intact? Because she set her boundaries. She's even got her arms and her legs crossed. Like she is a boundary. Like, look, these are my emotions. You're not getting to them. I did all of this work to get to this freaking 9 of cups. It was a lot of fucking work. And I'm not going to let you come in and turn my cups over and turn my emotions over. And this is Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. So I don't know if you have that, somewhere strong in your chart, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio. But also, the thing is, because of where we are and what's happening planetarily, because we are in a 6 year, which is the water tiger, I believe, in the Asian, da, da, da. And so you want to find out where the water is in your chart and perhaps set up an altar to that specific placement. So, how do you do that? So, if you have strong Pisces, you could just, you can even just get some water. Or, we were talking about Pisces is ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. So you could get like a picture of Neptune or a picture of Jupiter, like the planet, and put that on an altar with some water. But this is good. Like this is good. This is like I got my stuff together. I got my emotions together.
And you said
Questions
put
for
it
me.
where? Put it on.
Your altar?
Oh,
You
okay.
can put you can put your altar anywhere. But you want to just look at your birth chart first and see where your water placements are.
Yeah.
And then you want to just give attention to that. You want to strengthen those areas. Questions for me.
Um, sheesh, I don't know. That's pretty clear. I don't know if you remember we were even talking about. I know my Venus is in Pisces, and I know that there's some other
Oh,
places. Um, that it makes a lot of
ooh,
sense. And the boundaries makes a lot of this. Literally, what
Pisces
a
has
thing that I'm.
boundaries. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the thing
yeah,
that I've been working on. So none of it comes as a surprise. It's very
yeah.
like okay. If anything, is there any other more meanings to the Nine of Cups in general of like action to take or yes?
That's a great question. This is a result. They go together. They go together. This is a result of the boundaries. And so, of course, with Venus in Pisces, right? Say no more, right? Like Pisces is boundless. It's water. It's like, of course. And Venus is about, let's talk about Venus, right? Because we know Venus is about love, but Venus is also about luxury. Venus is about, nice things. We're about to go into Taurus, which Venus also rules. So Venus also has to do with security, right? And so the thing is for you, I love this. So having your, yes, more clarification, having your emotions in order, being this Nine of Cups is going to actually affect and grow your abundance as well, right? Because you've got that Venus in Pisces. So that also means that the emotions can interrupt like the money and the abundance flow and things like that, right? So the more you set your boundaries, and this is even like, no, I can't work for half of the pay. Like, no, sorry, like, no, pay me everything, right? And then that will make you feel better.
Mm,
And when you feel better about your position, and again, more gold here, it's also a returning. This is why we had that long, circuitous conversation about your childhood, because this is also like returning to that child that like had the gold us. It's like that feeling, like that connection that the child that carried amethyst and pyrite, right? It's like getting back to that.
mm,
We are going to the Green Witch Oracle. This is a deck of vegetable and fruits. And so it's going to give us some information. Also, I think working with the number three, because we have three here, we have nine here, and then three cards also fell out. You might want to do some work actually with Eshu or Legba. So digging back into your New Orleans people. Okay, so this is nice. This deck also has flowers. I forgot that. So we have here attraction. So this is all going to be connected to this Nine of Cups. So we have Pansy for attraction. So again, the more you're in this Nine of Cups energy, I already said that. Your abundance will grow. Your attraction will grow. So, getting some pansies, bringing some pansies in the house to remind yourself. We also have potato for grounding. I don't know if you're eating carbs. It's like, you're telling us to eat carbs out this bitch. Like, seriously. But we're going to, we're going to look
the
at,
sweet potato count?
oh, sweet potato. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's cute. And all of these connect to different planets and signs, so we'll go into that more. So it's like The boundaries, the emotions lead to make you more attractive, as if that's possible, make you more
Oh.
abundant. And then that abundance, from that abundance, that gives you a deeper sense of grounding. And then we have watermelon here for fertility.
Wow.
And again, like I was saying, that sacral chakra, like never letting that stay out of your mind, because
Mm.
it's about creativity, it's about being fertile, new ideas, new projects, and all of these things. And all these things stem from setting boundaries.
Mm.
So let's see if there's anything with pansy here. It's card number 34, which we would bring down to 7, which we know is a divine number. It resonates to the element of air. And so it says pansies indicate that people are being pulled into your life who align well with you. Romance may be on the agenda, but this energy also helps build community and friendship circles. Possibly where learning takes place, it is time to step back a little and relax into what is happening naturally. Hesitation and overthinking can cause blockages, and watch out for personal deception and gossip.
Mm.
There we go. There we go. So you can use it for memories. Remember, we talked about like going back, like keying back into that, that younger you. It resonates with meditation. So maybe putting this in your, where you do your yoga.
This is
It
the
resonates.
pansies, or?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
It resonates with kindness. It works with the fairies. It works with Kuan Yin, which is a very gentle deity, which is lovely. The celestial planet is Saturn. The astrological sign is Libra. So, what should I say about Saturn? They're saying don't talk about Saturn right now, so that's fine because they don't have fine. Fine. Saturn's like my favorite planet to talk about, even though it's like so hard. But anyway, then we have potato. Okay. So potato is explore the deeper innermost areas of yourself and situations, as potato indicates energies that are calling you to look again at what you may have once missed and will help to bring stability.
Hmm.
If you're looking for an answer, try pulling back a little to let things settle on their own first. Isn't it interesting that both of these cards have the same exact language? Pull back a little.
Hmm.
The attraction and the grounding. So, what I would say, it's almost like there's a meditation that I like to do with the eagle, where I go up high and I look down at different areas of life to look at things from a different perspective, almost like the hangman in the tarot. And so that's the guidance here. It's like really just pulling back a little bit, because this said this too with the pansy or the potato. Maybe there's something that you've missed.
Hmm.
Interesting. And then the fertility, number 29, the nurture of elements around you is highlighted, and watermelon energy shows that you will reap what you have sown. The wisdom of nature is at the forefront, and answers, discoveries, and inspiration will be found there for you. Plan well, stick with things, and look after those around you. Challenges may be a failure to connect with others and in authenticity. So we had something there around gossip for Pansy, I think, and then
Hmm.
this too around inauthenticity. So maybe that's also just an area. Maybe this has to do with like work or business or something, just because we do have this energy with Pisces and all of that. And that can be, Pisces can be a sign of illusion. And particularly with the Neptune and the Jupiter in Pisces this week, tomorrow, um, this is actually, I get it, slow down. This is a time of things looking better than they are. So it's like we have this like burst of energy, because Jupiter is about expansion. Neptune is all about like wishes and dreams and all of those things, right? And so it's like it can be a time of like people presenting themselves as being like almost too good to be true. So I even said this in for my IG post that's coming out this week, to just
Mm.
really make sure that you're reading the fine print. So yeah, so this is where this pulling back is, and this is something actually for you to just watch for like the next 6 months is what I'm hearing. So offers, projects, make sure you get, because again, this boundaries, make sure you're not over giving, make sure you're not over promising. So it's like just pull back a little and just make sure you're not doing that for the next 6 months, so that, yeah, you don't get into something like you were saying, like where you said yes and then you're like, oh man, maybe I gave too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. All this is so, like I said, it's very interesting. It's all specific. I mean, it speaks a little bit to something that I just kind of navigated coming out of, even. So I'm like, okay, I just uh, in this moment where I'm having to deal with the fear of being like, again, because like I feel like I just did that, or I just learned this lesson, I just pulled back. But if anything, I guess it's a reiteration to just, continue to stay present and stay vigilant, and you know not repeat old patterns, perhaps. And I guess other than that, I guess it's just me. I'm curious to see what it means, because I don't know
Hmm.
specifically in this moment. But like I said, I have some very specific examples in my recent past, that I can be like, oh, okay, well, that was the time where I needed that message,
Hmm.
And funny enough,
Hmm.
I have been eating a lot of watermelon. Some of it, it's LA, it's starting to get warm, but I've been, I have some right now in my freezer. I was like, oh, I'm gonna make some like frozen watermelon treat, but I haven't, and I haven't done that before, so that's
Amazing.
very interesting, that would come up, and even yesterday, oh my gosh, yesterday, this is actually quite hilarious, because I've been, um, juicing and being more conscious and cleansing and eating whole foods, but I went to a birthday party and I wasn't eating any of the past foods. I was like, this is the first time in my life, like, they passing around pizza, chicken sandwiches, and I'm
Mm,
saying no to
mm,
everything.
mm.
And then these French fries came along, and I said, I'm saying yes.
I said yes to French fries
And I grabbed it.
as
And
well.
then you said last night, you said?
Yes, potato, and yes.
But listen, as I put it in my mouth, French fry in my mouth, I looked at my friends. I said, "This a vegetable, right? It's potato," and I'm cracking up, because that was last night. It was a potato. So I'm just, because I hadn't had it in a while, and I
Yes.
just had it last night. And like I said, I've been having watermelon. I had some in the freezer now, so that is interesting that those two things are sure, there's a lot of things I haven't eaten or I'm not eating right now, but
Right,
for it to
right.
be watermelon and potato hasn't been on my radar, except that yesterday did occur. But watermelon certainly has been on the radar, so that's very interesting.
It is interesting that they just came back to back like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Um, okay, I'm gonna go to the ancestors. So this is the ancestor deck, and then maybe we'll do some herbs. Um, go back to that original question. What do you have for Sahaya? Thank you. Oh, that's nice. This is probably going to be a confirmation for you. Oh my God, it is confirmation. Treat your body well. Exercise, meditate, massage.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And you see
Wait,
me drinking my green juice right now, like.
yes. So the cool thing about, did I bring the book? Oh, I don't think I brought the book. Ah, because the cool thing about this deck is it actually goes to the lineage of the people in the deck, but these people look to be of some sort of Asian
Mhm.
descent.
Yeah, doing the
So that's,
massage.
yeah. So that's, oh, don't you do like Thai massage or something? Is that you?
Mm-mm. Freddie was doing Thai massage,
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah.
I have, funny enough, I get too personal. I had a good massage recently, but I also, yeah, massage has been on my radar. I guess I'll just say that massage has been on my
Okay.
radar, and I have been getting back into my body, doing certain physical things, doing yoga, more yoga, teaching yoga
Hmm.
again. live, which I hadn't done in a
Mhm.
long time due to the
Good.
pandemic. And as a result of that, though, too, like walking and stuff like that, feeling my body, being in my body, then I also feel every little thing. So I
Yeah.
actually, the massage thing speaks to definitely, an ongoing need in my life as well. And remembering that when I have been extra physical in the past, I've needed these massages to kind of keep me going.
Yes.
So that's a reminder the other things, like you said, are confirmation. It's like I
Yeah.
have been doing the physical aspect and I have been nourishing my body much
Yeah.
more and consciously like pursuing that. But I haven't necessarily been getting my regular massages,
Yeah.
and I thought about it, so it's still a confirmation because it is something that crossed my mind, but I just hadn't figured out yet how to make that. Really, I need to like create a stronger budget and make sure that's in the budget.
Yes, and it's also a part of the boundaries too. It's like setting that also like you're taking, it takes something to be physical. So it's like you're taking things out, you're taking foods out, you're creating these also like boundaries around what you're eating and things like that. So it's also like giving yourself a treat. Make sure that you give yourself a treat as you restrict, which thank you. I always find a way to work in Saturn. Saturn is the planet of restriction. So even even as you are restricting certain things, just remember, the juicy message of watermelon and that. So giving yourself a gift as well.
Yeah, that's funny. Even that in this, because as I told you, with my diet, I've been restricting myself from certain things. Like, I haven't even been eating meat. I just made some shrimp because I had some left over, and I was like, I need to eat this. If I'm not going to be eating meat for a while, I need to eat this. So I'm not looking at it and thinking about it every day. And even
Mhm.
that was just shrimp, and I made a salad, a citrus
Mhm.
shrimp salad. But so that was I just stood at the party was restriction, and I allowed myself to eat those French fries, but I'd been restricting myself from it for the most part, and then it was the potato
Mhm.
that broke me. So I thought that's very
It's always the
interesting.
potato. It's always the potato. So we'll do one message of the birds. This will give us an affirmation. And then if you have another question, you can feel free to ask it. So, what do the birds have to say? What do you have to say to Sahaya? So, we have the parrot. It's time to embrace who you really are, not worrying about other people's thoughts or opinions.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which is a very beautiful feather. And then we have the canary. Step forward now, sing your song. And we talked about sound healing. There is a power in finding your voice. Do you do sound healing?
I have not administered sound healing, but funny enough, as we mentioned earlier, right? I said I've been doing, and that's been for years now, but doing a lot of healing in the throat chakra. I do voiceover work. Actually, oh, there it is, maybe. Okay. Got it. So
Oh,
yeah, I'm in the talks about creating a meditation album and using obviously my voice to guided meditation and music. Um, and that we just had our initial meeting literally last week. So funny that
there we
you
go.
just said it, and I was like, no, because that's the traditional sense. But now, okay, well that makes sense. I'm wanting to create this
There we
album
go.
and just creative. I've also just been wanting to nurture more of my creative self outside of acting, right? Because acting has
Yes.
become this career thing and bubble, but the playfulness of creativity is something that I've been wanting to rekindle. So
Yep.
makes
Great.
sense.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Great. Good. So there's the sound. Great. So that's a confirmation for that CD.
Yeah. Wow.
Embrace who you are. There's power in your voice. Step forward now. Boom. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even that's like funny because I've been at the time of relaunching my holistic services, right? I never stopped offering them, per se, but I haven't necessarily been outwardly promoting. Um, and even that, I'm coming up with a name change. I'm about to relaunch a new name and go forward with everything. I can say it now because by the time this probably airs, it will be live or will be coming soon. But
Okay.
I'm
Definitely.
launching and relaunching Holistically Fierce Healing. And I think Zoe, I had Holistically Fierce in the past, but I didn't
Mhm.
have healing. as the word, and a part of it was always that umbrella, but it just I currently have been operating under We Breathe, Move, Meditate, and I've had a couple of different iterations of my holistic services and the name umbrella that they're under.
Mhm.
But I've been meditating and praying on it, and as I've, like I said, just starting to teach live classes again and offer workshops and events. Um, it has come. It's holistically fierce healing. So um, that's that's being reborn, I guess, is what I could say to
I
that.
I love that, and that is giving me another way to use these cards. Like these are also like topics to teach in your class, like setting
Mm,
boundaries,
mm,
being emotional intelligence, being like in the 9 of Cups, teaching people how to build their attraction and their abundance, grounding. Like you could even bring pansies in somehow when you're doing your classes and things like that, and
mm,
also sweet potato, maybe doing like something with cooking or something for them. And then the watermelon too with fertility. Who knows? You might have people with fertility issues. So maybe again, I kept talking about that sacral chakra, maybe doing something around fibroids or vaginal health or something like that for people,
yeah.
which
Wow.
all goes into treating your body well. So that's just another way of and helping people to find their true voice and freedom. So that's also like some things that you can also incorporate, yeah, into your business.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's some
so
cute
much.
programming. Yeah, that's some programming right there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's like 7 classes right there. That's like
I know. I'm glad you recorded this because I don't know where my notes are right now, but I should just written that. That's the whole program right there. Let me write it out.
I'll send you the photos. I'll send you the photos. But yeah,
Thank you.
that's they didn't gave you a whole blueprint. They like
Yeah.
here. That's okay. Other questions?
um, I'm hesitating to say this out loud because I know that this is a recorded podcast, but
Okay.
I do, I am curious about the romance part, and it did come up in my reading, and it has come up, and it's been
Mhm.
something that I've been working to heal that space. It came up in that
Okay.
shroom trip heavily. Like I
Okay.
felt like all the wounds of my past lovers live in that shroom trip, which is painful but powerful
Okay.
because I release it,
Okay.
right? But since then, I had all these. I had multiple readings actually that told me my soulmate was coming, or that I was going to
Okay.
find romance and love, and I had a lot of those readings going into 2020. I don't know if it's just that the astrological life of
I
2020
did
just
too, child.
threw things off or what, but that did not happen, right? And
Same.
so and even with myself, I've pulled recently again like soulmate cards, and I continue to learn, and boundaries has come up a lot for me. So literally no surprise that you pulled that card first. I actually have a book that my therapist has just recommended on codependency, and so zero surprises there. But because that is a topic and part of the topic that's coming up, um, I guess I am just asking it, right? I was like, I didn't think I
Yeah.
want to ask
Why
this on the
not?
podcast, but I am curious, like if anything is coming up. Something did come up, right? You mentioned romance and
Yes.
boundaries and all that's a part of it. So I'm just curious if I don't know what to say. Like I don't want to say like when's it gonna happen or something like that, but I
Yeah.
think I maybe
Yeah.
want to say maybe what can I do, even like and I felt that as well with the sacral chakra healing and activity. But I'm just curious to just like uh and hopefully because I know this is a podcast, like maybe something that might be able to help others as well. But like what is it, if there's something specific for me, like what can I just do, I guess, to prepare or be continue to be in alignment for that romance or romantic partnership, even if it's not the one. I at least want healthy interactions, and I'm finding that like I have that's even that has been scarce for me, it feels like. And so healing that space, evaluating that space, setting firmer boundaries, clear boundaries, all the things, I know that that's what has already come up. So I'm
Hmm.
just curious if there's anything else in the form of advice from the
Yes,
cards and
of course.
guides.
Yes. So first I would say so this is boundaries but not a wall, not a brick
Mm,
wall.
yeah.
So let's not confuse boundaries with a brick wall.
Mhm.
This pansy for attraction, also, this was like the third thing, right? And so, again, this Nine of Cups, this is like emotional satisfaction. So it's definitely here. So I would say, like, there's something about these pansies, like bringing them in. Like, I don't know if there's like, like a pansy perfume. I don't even know if they smell good. I don't know. But
Yeah,
just
I'm
getting,
not as familiar with pansies, so it's gonna be fun to kind of explore that.
oh, you know what? This book has rituals too. So hold on. This book has rituals. So let me see what the ritual is. But let's answer this question. So first, also believing it's possible. But Spirit, what do you have for Sahaya about romance? What do you have? Don't be afraid to want it. Don't be afraid to request it. Also, acting as if. What else, Spirit? They're actually this. You should take a note, even if it's like just jotting it down.
All
They're
right, let
they
me
do a
grab
good job. Yeah. So just go ahead
before
and
you
grab.
said things, you know, because I was like, I will take my notes. Now let me grab my notebook.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm, these are nice. Okay. Okay. So that's good. Oh, are you gonna give? Oh, I wish I had my other cards actually do have like months and stuff, but I left them at home. So, oh, okay, that's interesting. All right, huh? Interesting. This is a no. This is a yes. Okay. All right. So the first thing here we have loon, and it says pay attention to your dream time. Messages of guidance are drifting in. So even asking in your dreams, you know, um, where can you go? How can you expand your circle? How can you expand your level of attraction? Begin calling in your mate in your dream time. I don't know if you're doing that.
You know, I'm curious
Yeah.
about that because I'm not somebody who consistently remembers their dreams. I
Yeah.
do have some times where they are more prevalent than others, but
Mm-hmm.
I also oftentimes, if I do stuff before bed, I'll fall asleep into whatever it is I'm doing. So I'm
Yes.
curious if you have any advice or
Yes.
tools on how to do that. So
I
the
do.
answer to that is no, I haven't necessarily because I don't know how or
Yes. So it's very simple. Before you go to bed, just write down what you want the answers to when you wake up, right? And so it's like, tell me something about my prospective partner. Show me the things because there's like one or two things here really about like what you need to do. It's not like you have to do a whole bunch of things. Um, but it's very interesting that this says pay attention to your dream time. So it's like being intentional, setting your intention before you go to bed, writing down that you do want to get answers. So, for example, I know I'm talking in riddles, but this is what I've if I wanted to do work in my dream time, there was a person that I was having issues with in the 3D world. So in my dream, I sent my higher self to that person to fix that situation. Okay, in the dream time so that I wouldn't have to worry about them in the 3D. I've also asked for people to be taken out of my life in the 3D. So perhaps, yes, I'm hearing that you can ask to be brought closer to your divine partner. You can ask that in your dream time. You can write down, it's almost like instead of doing an actual vision board, write down, thank you, what you want to see, what you want to feel, what you want to experience. Write that down before you go to bed and perhaps look at it, glance at it before you go to bed and then see what messages you get when you wake up in the morning. Like, for example, there was also some work that I wanted to do on a play when I was writing Ashes. And so I asked for, the closing poem, so to speak, before I went to bed, because I was like, Spirit, I really need like the closing poem for my play. When I woke up, instantly I hear voices. I just like literally opened my eyes and I just wrote the whole closing to the play. So that is an example of working with your dreams.
Thank
Then,
you.
yes, yes, I'm trying to think if there's any other. No, they're like, don't, there's not. No, they don't want to give you, they don't want you to be like overwhelmed. So that's a good start. Okay. So then you also got the pelican. So that we did get in reverse. And it says, choose to follow the path of forgiveness and raise your vibration.
Mm.
So you are already doing your juicing and things like that. And the other thing I'm hearing is like, don't be too hard on yourself. Again, it's like boundaries don't mean walls, it's a fine line. So it's like not being too hard on yourself, like not being so structured or whatever, right? And if you do slip up or you're not as consistent, don't beat yourself up about that. Ah, I get it. The message of the loon, ducks, loons, whatever, they go with the flow, they float, they don't force. It's a balance. It's like, on the one hand, go out to places where oh, the other thing they're saying is, do you even know what you want in a
Oh,
relationship, like for real?
not a read. They said, "Do I know what I want?"
Not in theory, but like in the 3D. And so, and what are the fears you have around that? So those are also things you can write down and ask to be removed in your dream time, in your dreams, calling in your angels, going back to that angel work that you were doing, that angel healing, using your crystals, using your tools, because it says to raise your vibration. So definitely getting clear on what you want in real life, because there is a fear here of constriction and of like, if I get into this relationship, will I know how to be? Will I lose myself? Will this happen? Will they try to control me? Blah, 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 blah. It's like making friends and making peace with those fears. And look at it, they're saying, just like we talked about moving to New York or moving to LA, balancing the fear and the wonder. As a matter of fact, those are your theme words, your fear, the fear and the wonder of both.
When your own stuff comes back to get you.
You see how that works?
Right.
You see how that works? Yeah. Yeah. So that's the approach. That's the approach. So I did ask a little bit about your partner. So this is interesting. So we got Libra, we got idealist. So this person could have a strong Libra placement. And so, that's interesting. So it could be, so Libra is air. So they might be, you know, a little idealistic, a little intellectual, which is, nice for a person such as yourself. Um, of course, can be a little indecisive, a little judgy. Um, I'm a Libra, so it's like, good luck. But that's what, that's, you know, it's interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
it could also be their house. It doesn't necessarily have to be their sun, moon, rising. Again, it could just be a strong Libra placement, like somebody with like a nice, Libra in a nice house, like, it could be cute.
Yeah, I've never dated a Libra sun, so I don't even know what that
Yeah,
gives.
yeah, yeah. And there's so many other things, right? But
Yeah.
but this is the vibe: idealistic, intellectual, likes nice things. So that's cool. And then we have Mars, which is interesting. We got Mars in reverse, and Mars is rules Aries, and Aries is the polar opposite of Libra. Well, not really polar opposite, but we sit across from each other on the zodiac. And so it's like Libra can learn from Aries, how to center themselves and put themselves forward. And Mars or Aries can learn from Libra how to compromise. So it's interesting too that, oh, thank you, Spirit, that it might be a surprising person. It might not, oh, this sextile in reverse makes sense, this opportunity in reverse. So it might surprise you. It might come in a package that you're not expecting
Hmm.
because we got this
So,
opportunity in reverse. So again, it's like, do you know what you want? In theory, but in real life. Because this could be a person, again, that comes in a package that you might not necessarily normally look at or be attracted to. They might be quirky, have some funny quirks. It might not look like an opportunity, but it is. Because when we have something in reverse, it's like this is energy that's just waiting to be released, right? So it's like, again, they might be different, so you don't think you want to take action, you second guess it, right? But that's energy that needs to be released. It's just waiting. So it's like, yes, take action. Yes, it is an opportunity, even though if it doesn't look like one. And that also makes sense with Libra because Libra's always balancing. So that also could be the energy that you're carrying as well. Like, should I? Shouldn't I? What'll happen? I don't really know. That's that Libra indecisiveness. I like that. One more from the ancestors, and then that's it on the romance. What do the ancestors have to say about this? What do the ancestors have to say? Oh, this card just wanted to come out. All right. I don't know if you're still working with your Isis deck. This card has been wanting to come out. Honor the deities around you. So you might want to pull your deck back out if you haven't been using it. It says prayers, offerings, help. So this again is about the romance, right? Honor the deities around you. So working with your angels, your ancestors, the Orisha that you work with, put them on the case. Oh, look, and this fell out too. I didn't even see this. Enjoy new beginnings. We love it.
yeah.
And there's our white mist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Celebrate, socialize, change. We love it. And this, I don't, yeah, you can see it. It's
Hmm.
almost like this person on this horse is giving me like the 9 of wands, and the knight of wands, excuse me, in the tarot is like the fastest moving knight in the deck. And whenever we see the knight, that's the end of a long term situation. And we also have wolves behind, this and birds, right? So it's like I like this enjoying it. And there's that number three houses right there.
Oh, wow. You did say three a lot earlier.
I did, yeah, yeah. And so the horse is moving fast, the wolves are moving fast, the houses, there's smoke coming out of the chimneys, so there's a fire, so it's warm. So this is a place of warmth, right? Again, this duality. So even though it looks cold on the outside, the people are warm and snuggly and have everything they need on the inside. So again, even if this person doesn't look like, maybe it's like you work together or something and you're like, oh, I really shouldn't, like get involved with people that I work with, right? It's like things like that.
Yes, I got Zoe. I have to say, it's very interesting. I had another reading maybe a month or two ago,
Okay.
And it wasn't about romance. I don't think I even asked about it, but it came up. The
Okay.
the the tarot. She did tarot and lovers. Lovers came up. I pulled it. She didn't have. She pulled out most of the cards for me, and that the one card she had me pull, I pulled, and it was lovers. But then with the other things that came up, I forgot about that because I said, "Oh yeah, I pulled soulmate recently too," but I wasn't even thinking about her reading. But now, point is, she said it may be something come in a package I don't expect, and that I can't forget that word when you just said it as many times and how the way that you just said it, right? It just is like, okay, what? Like now I'm like, well, what does that even mean? I don't even know that you know the answer to that. I'm just acknowledging it to
Yeah.
you out loud that that's
Yeah.
in my head now because she already said it, and I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. But now I'm like, what? And you can't
Yeah.
ignore it when it happened twice. You know what I mean? So
That's
I'm like,
right.
what does that mean?
Open your eyes. Just open your eyes and pay attention to your surroundings. People might be looking at you, people might be wanting to talk to you, and maybe they're nervous. So just like look around, pay attention to your surroundings when you're like out and about in the world.
Yeah, interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, it could be, you know, not coming in a package you expect could mean a lot of things.
Yeah. No, it's also
Some,
funny. I just finished reading a romance book,
okay,
and I didn't do the research before reading it. I just had read her previous book and I enjoyed it, so I read the second book because I needed a distraction.
yeah.
And I didn't know this upon reading it, but turns out she was a fitness trainer. And she was trying to start her business and make her money doing
Oh
her
my God.
fitness, which is some
Okay.
things that I've been like, adjacent
Yeah.
to. And
Yeah.
was like also even her struggle with it though was like I felt I understood it, was kind of still in it in the same way. But then she ends up getting with in the book, she ends up getting with this football player. But the irony is wow, sure, that's like ideal for a lot of people. It wasn't. She was not trying to. She was not trying to entertain that, and she wasn't trying to entertain. And you just said that's what made me think of the book because you just said, "What if it's like a working relationship or something?" And that was the thing in the book. She was like, he was a client, and she was like, "I cannot and will not date my clients." I don't even. eh, I don't have anything right now that makes sense for, but I guess it's something to be aware of.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was just funny because I thought of that
Yeah.
as you said it, and it's just like there's all these like little dots. Like me, I love to connect the dots, so I'm like,
Yes.
oh, okay, well that's an interesting dot. She said that,
Yes.
you said that,
I
this
like
happened,
the
that happened. Um,
I like the dots you're connecting.
yeah, so I'm just very curious. I'm gonna try to not stick on just the one thing because there was so much that was said, but I just
Okay.
it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge out loud that I was like, what is this unexpected package?
I like it. Yeah, that's and enjoy the new beginnings.
Yes, yes. New beginning.
That's amazing. That's a nice ending to a romance. Like enjoy the new. And a cozy house.
I love a cozy house,
I like
okay?
a cozy house too with a fireplace with the smoke coming out the chimney. I like that.
Warm.
Warm and snuggly. Cause you
Mm.
can't go. It's too cold. You can't go outside. You just have to stay in the house. So I like that. Great job. How do you feel? Do you feel complete?
Yeah, well, uh, it was that was a lot. It was so much that I'm like, "Ooh, I have to sit with I have to sit with a lot of this."
Yeah, I know. I know. It's true.
But good stuff.
Yes, very good. And so, my last question for you is about your legacy.
Mhm.
What's what would you want your legacy to be?
My legacy. My. Um, this is not something admittedly that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, but I guess I am moving into a place in life, and I guess now the world the way it is, mortality being so clear is like, well, you should be. You know, what if you leave tomorrow? What's your legacy? And I think I go back to some of what I said in our beginning, which is, joy, compassion,
Mm.
wonder, facing fears. So, if nothing else, I think I would like to be known as somebody who showed compassion, who is shown compassion, who sparks joy, and who walks through the world not afraid to face her fears and
Mm.
to experience the wonder in each moment.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so beautiful. And so, how can people find you? How can people support your work?
Yes, yes, yes.
What's up?
You can find me on Instagram at Syhaya Aviel. It's my name, Syaya, as in Victor, IEL. Um, Soon, it will be live at Holistically Fierce Healing. Um, right now, I do have holisticallyfierce.com, uh, Syhaya.com if you're looking for my acting work and reel. And yeah, I think those are the key places.
Well, thank you again. I know that people will find this illuminating and edifying, and I will talk with you all. Thank you again for listening to the Magic Hours. I am Zoe Flowers, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye.